So we're live.
We are live. Okay. Alex, why don't you get us started?
Sure.
Everyone who's not speaking should mute so we don't get the feedback. I'm about to do that.
So we'll give a welcome to the Complete Street Safety Committee. I've got a little preamble to get started. So this meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N2920 issued on March 17th, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide the safest environment for staff, committee members, and the public while allowing for public participation. The public may participate via Zoom web link and/or by phone or by using remote public comment options. The committee may take action on any item listed in the agenda. Members of the public may view the Complete Street Safety Committee meeting by logging into the Zoom meeting listed below, which I'll provide information for shortly. Complete Street Safety Committee meetings can also be viewed live and/or on demand via the city's YouTube channel, which is available at youtube.com/BrisbaneCA or on Comcast Channel 27. Archived videos can be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. If you want to join by Zoom, you can do so through brisbaneca.org/CSSC-Zoom. The meeting ID is 976-0955-7422, and the passcode for the meeting is 747389. You can also join by phone at 1-669-900-9128, and please provide meeting ID 976-0955-7422. To address the committee, if an item appears on the agenda that you're interested in, you may address the committee at this time. The matter you are interested in is not on the committee's agenda, but is a matter that is within the committee's subject matter jurisdiction. You may address it under public comment. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. The following email will be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications or during an item. That email is jyuen@brisbaneca.org. Lastly, if you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Justin Wen at jyuen@brisbaneca.org or call the phone number 415-508-2139. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting.
Okay, and just one thing to note for any call-in attendees, if you want to raise your hand, please press *6 on your keypad, and then to unmute, press *9.
And that we have a few items of business to get through, but the parking issues in central Brisbane that you were invited for will come up shortly on the agenda. So that is on the agenda, and that will be the time to talk about those.
Okay, so I guess we'll have a roll call. Let's see. Patrick Tainer, absent. Alex Bain,
Present.
James Christie,
Present.
Linda Detmer. Linda,
I think she's muted.
you're on mute, but I can see you say. I can read your lips. Christian Cabrera. Christian?
He's here.
Present. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Alex Lau.
Here.
And Ernie Ibarra. And he's absent. Okay, so we have five members today.
All right.
So now the chair leads us through the agenda.
Yeah, so can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as it's currently written?
I'll make a
Okay, so motion and a second, so the agenda has been adopted as written. On the topic of oral communications, is there anything to cover this time?
Yes, so we did get one emailed comment earlier today. Let me share that. Okay, so we got one comment. Can you see the Word doc here?
Yes.
So, oh, wait, hold on, Ernie's here. Okay. So we got one written comment. As a resident of Santa Clara Street, I have noticed a great increase in traffic and unsafe driving since in-person classes have resumed. Many cars speeding with youngsters in the back or cars post drop-off up and down Santa Clara Street. Many cars doing U-turns at the Santa Clara San Bruno intersection or at the end of the drop-off zone mid-block on San Bruno. Cars speeding downhill on San Bruno, cars speeding uphill on San Bruno, cars blowing through the intersection at Santa Clara San Bruno. Perhaps a patrol car is needed to monitor the situation before an unfortunate accident occurs. So,
we could decide to agendize this for our next meeting.
Seems reasonable.
Commander Garcia, do you want to say anything?
Yes, actually, with the start of school, we've actually started a educational piece on the speed limit of 15 miles an hour zone since last week, and we actually have CMS signs up also encouraging people to adhere to the 15 mile an hour speed limit. Our officers have been out there and are making contact with cars who are either not aware of the speed limit yet during the drop-off zones at this time. So,
okay, our call-in attendee would like to speak, so I'm going to put him or her on the line now. Okay, and then to unmute, press *9 on your keypad.
Oh. This is Dan Rickard. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I live on 125 San Francisco Avenue, and my main concern is that the employers and their employees from the mall across the street are using both sides of San Francisco Avenue to park their vehicles. For example, a catering services uses both sides of San Francisco to store their vans. I feel that San Francisco Avenue should be reserved for residents who live on the street and for families and their children who want to use park facilities. As you know, it's a high-use area, and residents of the area, in my opinion, should be given priority to park their cars. I understand that the owner of the mall does not allow employees and their employers and employees to use the area to park. Maybe a meeting with said owners of the mall might alleviate some of the parking issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for calling in.
So maybe staff can look into this a little bit, and the chair or the committee can tell us if they'd also want to agendize this matter. But we can look into it and report back.
Certainly, I think that's very worthwhile.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So right. So as Karen mentioned, we'll take a look and see, and look a little deeper into the issue, and we'll see if there's anything that we can do to address that. Were we finished with the oral communications on Santa Clara Street? Did we want to also look into that or agendize it for the next meeting?
Well, let's maybe staff get a report from police first and see what they're observing while they're doing the education. It seems a little soon to take another action. I think we'd want to kind of get feedback on how the 15 mile per hour zone is working and how people are responding to it. And, that was traffic calming that we put out there. So I don't think we're planning to, do other traffic calming measures right off the bat. So we'll hear back from police and then we'll report out to the committee next time. I think probably is the best approach. What do you think, Justin?
I agree. Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, so with the in-person classes having been resumed, I think it was it last week, beginning of last week, you know, at that point, the 15 mile an hour speed limits during school hours, during drop off and pickup periods, you know, they're in effect. So I think we should take a closer look and see what the, you know, what the trends are. I mean, I hope that, you know, people aren't already speeding again, even with those 15 mile an hour zones being implemented. So yeah, why don't we take a look and revisit.
I'd like to just add that we are transitioning back from a pandemic, and I think more police presence, if that's possible, or a stronger stop pulling people over, something to remind people that we are transitioning back after a long time of children not being walking back to school or on the sidewalks on a regular basis. And it's going to be hard for some people. It's been over a year. So I'd really like to see us keep an eye on this.
Yes, absolutely. We will definitely have officers out there, and we could remind the public and re-educate the public on speed limits and the hazards out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any other oral communications that we want to cover at this time? Okay, so I think we can move on to approval of the minutes. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they're currently written.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Oh, and we'll do a roll call vote to approve. So we'll start. Alex Bain.
I vote approve.
James Christie.
Aye.
Linda Detmer.
Aye.
Christian Cabrera.
Aye.
Alex Lau.
Aye.
And Ernie Ibarra.
That's an aye, if you can hear me.
Okay. Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
I've got no video for some reason.
Oh,
I've
no
been having
worries.
some technical difficulties. I sent you an email, but continue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So in that case, I think we can move on to old business. First on the list is the potential parking issues in central Brisbane.
So Alex, should I take it away?
Yeah, Karen, unless you were about to say something, Karen.
I was going to say, Justin, do you want to give an update just on how we ask the public to engage, and then?
Yeah, so we had, so as you know, we placed a questionnaire survey on the city's Friday blast and on the Facebook page, as well as in the recent May Star newsletter. And with those, with the survey post, we also, included the meeting information for tonight's Complete Streets Safety Committee meeting. And we also placed the link to the survey and the meeting information on the signboard on Old County. So those were the sort of things that we did to, to try to reach out to the public and just let them know that this discussion is going on, and to encourage them to attend. So James, go ahead.
Yeah, to give the members of the public some background, we on the committee, we've been getting complaints and hearing from other members of the community that parking is a problem in central Brisbane, the old part of town. And since August of last year, this has been an issue we've been studying in depth. We did a parking study where we chose 6 blocks at random in central Brisbane, and we studied them over a period of 10 days to get quantitative data on what the parking situation is like. And we found that on every weekday that we studied, parking capacity was over 85%. On some days they were at 100%. And generally 85% capacity or higher is generally a sign that there is a scarcity of parking. And so one thing we've been doing as a committee is discussing possible remedies which we could recommend to the city council. They include a possible parking permit program, introducing a street sweeping program with the intention of discouraging people from parking cars for a long time, including non-operational vehicles on the street. Also a possible one-time financial incentive or incentive of some kind for residents to clean out their garage in hopes that they start using that for parking, possibly expanding where the white lines are in town for more, to essentially to increase legal parking spaces. And we want to get feedback from the community for any of these remedies to work. We definitely need community buy-in and support. So we want to hear if you believe that parking is a problem in Brisbane, or if you don't believe that it is, and what you think of the possible remedies that we're currently considering, or if you have other potential remedies. Essentially, we want to know what the community feels on this issue. So please bring your honesty and your opinion. We certainly want to hear it.
Okay, it looks like our call-in attendee has his hand raised, so I'll go ahead and unmute him. I'm not sure if his hand was raised from the last time and it just hasn't been lowered, but sir,
I'm sure everyone has thoughts about parking.
Yeah. Let's see. So Tori,
Yeah, I've attempted to unmute my microphone.
Yeah, you're unmuted. We can hear you now.
Okay, I made my comment earlier with regard to the mall parking. I assume you heard it.
Yes.
Over?
Okay. So that's your comment on residential parking then.
Yes, and also for families and the kids to be able to have better access to the park. We live here, and the weekends are jammed, which is great. That's what the park is for. But it shouldn't be for storage of vans and other vehicles that don't live here. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, do we have any other members of the public who wish to speak?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, I know a few people are watching online right now, so if you haven't yet, please fill out the survey that you found that was emailed to you in the blast these last few weeks, and also we have a paper version in the Brisbane Star. We're definitely going to take the responses from those surveys very seriously, and so we definitely want to hear what each of you have to say.
Yeah, and we did. It's worth noting that so far with the questionnaire survey, we've already gotten 250 responses.
Oh wow!
So a lot of participation. The survey deadline is May 21st, so there's still about almost 3 weeks to get in your responses to that survey. You can either submit via the survey link online, or you can fill out the paper survey in the Star, and you can either mail those to City Hall, or you can drop those off in the utility billing box on visitation at Midtown Market. So two ways to fill out that survey and submit your response. And we've already gotten over 250 people with responses. So that's a lot of that's a lot of participation that we've gotten so far through that format.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and so if members of the subcommittee could meet after our meeting, so we could set a date sometime after May 21st to go through the data, that'd be great.
So, okay, so meet before, you said before May 21st?
After May 21st,
after
so we can
21st.
analyze the data as a subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Justin, we're seeing a list of your emails on the screen share right now.
You're seeing my emails?
Well, just a
Yeah.
list of them.
Oh, okay. Here, let me.
I mean,
James, can I ask a question
Sure.
about the parking? Would you say on average there's probably one street parking spot space available per home, you know, in the blocks that you surveyed, like on average?
Like one block available per household. Is that your question?
Like one space per house,
You mean
yeah,
like off street?
available
like-
on the street. Yeah, on the street.
Oh, on the street.
Definitely
Yeah.
not.
Oh, it's less,
yeah, there
usually
were-
less than that.
Yeah, there were definitely days where we had 100% capacity.
I mean, if nobody was parking there, is the available, you know, potential available space in front of each home probably about one space, one car spot?
We could easily get that data. In our survey, we counted how many parking spaces there are, but we didn't count how many lots there are or households.
No, I think we did.
Or we did count the lots and households
Yeah,
on
I
each of the blocks.
I forget what the figure ended up being, you know, because we did compare the number of households on a block. Well, so this was only for the 6 blocks that we sampled.
Okay.
So
I
we
remember
did-
us talking about it, but I don't
Yeah,
recall
I-
that data
yeah.
offhand.
Let me see if we have that. It was the number of households per block compared to the number of on-street
Spaces.
parking spaces.
Yes.
And I think it did, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it is that there are more households per block than available on-street parking spaces.
Oh, so it's less than, so the ratio
So
is less
it's-
than 1.
Yeah, so it's right, less than 1. So there definitely is, I mean, just looking at existing supply, there's less available than, you know, demand as it is.
Yeah, in that central Brisbane area, most of the lots are 25 feet wide. And then if you put a driveway in there that's 12 feet wide, that's not enough for a space.
So just given the nature, you know, the density of housing units, you know, it is a tight squeeze and there's only so much available, you know, space on the street.
Thank you.
So that's, you know, and that's something to consider, you know, that's just the way that the lots are sized is not conducive to, you know, an abundance of available on-street parking.
But Justin,
And if
when you get a
people-
chance, could you email that to me? Email the data to me?
Sure, yeah,
Thanks.
I'll look for that later.
Appreciate it.
If people parked in the driveway and, you know, like in tandem, and let's say part of the car was on the sidewalk, is that a violation? If it was kind of blocking the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about that concern before, and enforcement on that creates even less parking availability, you know, like heavy enforcement on that. So that was part of what we put in the survey, though, is do people want to see, you know, more enforcement and greater fines for illegal parking? So we want to hear what the community has to say, you know, and you guys all should take the survey too. You're members of the community.
Yeah, and
Also,
tell your neighbors.
Across the sidewalk on the street safety routes creates a problem because people walk around those vehicles and possibly into the street in order to continue their journey safely. And that kind of defeats the purpose.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I guess my understanding on that is, I mean, if you enforce it, a lot of people, they're going to get tickets, but they should pay a special attention to the safety routes for the kids, not to, and so for those streets, enforcement should be more rigid.
So, Commander Garcia, is there any way that that we can implement stricter enforcement of parking on sidewalks along the walk routes, or has police taken a look at that as of now?
Yeah, that's definitely constantly on patrol's agenda at all times to look at those violations.
What, has anything been different about that during the pandemic with people being home so much more? Have you is that a consideration?
What do you mean by people parking on the sidewalk? I mean,
well, if there's a lack of parking and people are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the anomaly of the pandemic and everybody being at home, I mean, obviously cars are more stagnant now. It really does force cars to be creative, and we have to remind them that with in-person schooling or those routes being used now, we need to get them off those sidewalks and to ensure that people can pass safely. Absolutely.
Anything else?
I can't think of anything. I mean, I feel like we can move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. Yeah, and once the survey results are in, next meeting we'll discuss more in depth about what the findings are. I think a lot of people are, I think they feel that answering the survey is their way of giving feedback. If so.
It's efficient, yeah.
Yeah.
Does
I agree.
do you want to have a subcommittee meeting before, or do you just want to review the results?
I was
Jane?
thinking after, when we get the results, so we can review them.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I thought Justin was going to give a little update about just people strongly feel that there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into the specifics about how they
We don't want to skew it if people are watching.
Yeah, we don't want to influence.
Yeah, we definitely don't. But yeah, please.
But the general consensus I can tell you is that the majority of people feel that there is a parking shortage problem in central Brisbane, and the majority feel that there's a shortage problem on their block. So most people do feel that there is a problem.
Not too surprising.
Not surprising, but but that's but it verifies sort of what we hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll disclose all of the. We'll go over the results in more detail at the next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm very interested to hear what the public has to say, particularly about potential remediations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a unique problem to Brisbane. A lot of cities have, parking problems. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of solutions they are leaning toward.
Maybe that kind of gives me an idea. Maybe I'll reach out to my colleagues in South City, because I know that, in certain parts of South City, like near downtown, the residential areas near Grand Avenue, those are sort of, it's a similar density to Brisbane, I feel, where the lot sizes are small and there's a limited amount of on-street parking. Maybe I'll get in touch with them and see how they've dealt with the on-street parking situation there. And if you've been to downtown South City recently, or in general, that parking is tough there as well.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about the survey results next time. Are there any other topics to discuss for this one, or should we move on to the subcommittee items? All right. So the first one on the list is the expansion of the safe pedestrian routes to schools. Do we have an update on that one?
Christian, any updates?
We did circulate that document to the school, right? That's my understanding.
You mean the article?
Yes.
Yes, those I think those should have gone in the newsletters. Have you seen? Have you seen the?
Are you leaving now?
The newsletters yet? For
Yeah.
Christian and
I'm gonna try to find I can't get email for some
I think our attendee is still unmuted.
Are you able to mute him?
Yep. Sorry about that.
Yes, it was circulated to the schools.
Okay.
Are we
Yeah.
on the education or the expansion?
I was gonna say we're getting a little ahead. We're getting a little ahead here. But Christian, for the
On the expansion, we met with, Justin and I met with Christian and Patrick. Sorry, I'm reading my agenda over there. And what we asked them to do beyond prioritizing the walkways was to look at everything in the city, because we've seen a couple grant opportunities for regional projects that, they're federal grants. There's a new, infrastructure bill and a new president, and those have to be big projects because there's all the administrative end of it. But, are there other things in the city that would connect us regionally that, like, Justin and I thought about sidewalks all through Crawford Park? Are there things like that that we could go after these bigger grants for? And if we put those into our plans, then we're better set up to ask for grant money later. So to kind of take a bigger look at it, that's kind of the next step of that item. And we just met and talked about it, so I don't think they have any report at this point, right? They're just starting off.
No, I mean, we're excited. That was a very productive meeting, and we definitely like the idea to expand the safe route, and especially in the Crocker Park. As we discussed, the Crocker Park is it's not like an industrial park. You could do, there's no like heavy activity around there, so you could definitely use it for walks and so forth. So and also that connects to the rich part of the Brisbane. So yeah, we're looking forward to explore different ways to expand the safe route on that section, and with the vision to connect to the rich one.
Yeah, like all of it in town, like how do pedestrians get around? For another example that Justin and I talked about, not at that meeting though, is that sometimes you see pedestrians in the bike lane on Bayshore. It would be really expensive to add a sidewalk, but what if there's some big federal grant that we would qualify for out there to add some sidewalks through some of that? If we get that in our plan, then maybe we'll be able to go after some of that money. So we're kind of working together on that. We want to see what the committee comes up with, but we have a couple of ideas too. So that's what that item is going to be going forward. You prioritize the walkways in central Brisbane, and we got that, but there was kind of a bigger picture we wanted you guys to give us input on. So thank you for taking that on too. The never-ending item.
Yeah, the never-ending item. Yeah, so I think the next step is going to be, Justin is going to provide some red dotted lines in some of those areas, and Pat and Bara and I could go and explore them just the way we did with the other ones, and then we bring some feedbacks after done some field assessment.
Yeah, I think I sent you the map already. Did you not get that, or do you want me to just send it again just in case?
Yeah, can you send it again, please?
Okay, no worries.
Thanks.
All right, great. Any other topics for this one, or should we move on to the next one? Okay, so the second subcommittee work item was the education outreach regarding the safe pedestrian routes. Are there any updates on the education and outreach side of this project?
So as Christian mentioned, so the article that that I had prepared, sort of just to go provide an overview of the walk routes and the green infrastructure and the speed limit zones. So I believe BES and Littman have included that article in their newsletters, and hopefully that went out to the parents and to the students, and hopefully they were able to, hopefully they saw that and were able to be informed of that. And then also, as Christian had requested, we are preparing a sort of like a walking tips article for the kids to be able to look at and just be informed about, safe walking practices and using crosswalks and just being alert in general. So we're just working on the graphics for that, and we'll try and format that sort of as like a flyer or a poster or something. But Christian or Ernie, do you have any suggestions for how we can, hand those out, or where we can post those? I think you had mentioned like a bulletin board at the schools or something like that. Is there any? And what do you think is the best way to sort of make that visible?
So I think similar way to the way you route the article through a newsletter, but also in the bulletin board. And I will also mention this, sending this alertness or making it more, giving it to the kids will dovetail what Linda was saying, because we're just coming out of a pandemic. It would be good to raise the alertness and have the kids understand, that there's people that, because it was almost a year or more than a year, the kids were not around. Now they're coming back, so the kids have to be careful, as well as adults that are driving around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we can definitely, give that to the schools to put in the newsletter as well.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm still having video problems, but as far as getting the word out there, we might want to post something at the new library, since the library's open, and get them involved.
Good idea.
And I don't know how many kids are stopping by there yet, but it soon enough will be the hub.
It's open now, right?
It is. I don't think they allow too many people inside at a time, but it is open.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's a good point. I mean, you could also use the local restaurants and even that the tea place. A lot of the kids go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go there too.
It is delicious.
I think, yeah. So that's a good idea.
Are the schools still using the Thursday packet to go in? Is that back in place yet, or even still a part of what they do?
Almost all communication is online now.
Okay.
You can opt in to get a packet on Thursdays, but it's in the single digits.
Okay. Got it.
I have been asking them to bring it back, because it's a great way to make parents and kids sit down and actually exchange information for 5 or 10 minutes once a week. But,
Right.
To no avail.
Well, if they're getting it electronically into each home, that's a real plus too.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, thanks.
All right. Yeah, should we move
Great.
on?
Yeah. So the next subcommittee item would be sightlines at the various intersections. Ernie, do you have an update for that?
I don't. I've been having technical difficulties and issues for the whole month here, since I got back from vacation. I've got nothing new to report. I know that Linda and Pat did a little work on that, but I'm not privy to that. If they have anything that they wanted to add, I guess now would be the time.
So why don't I pull up that
It is on the
report?
agenda.
Yeah, let me.
Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, both Pat and I went out to the intersection of Glen Parkway and San Benito Road and observed that there are a couple of crosswalks there. There's the overview of the area where several streets kind of all go together and there's no stop signs. The thing that we were asked to look at was the sight line approaching Glen Park from San Benito, to the left and to the right, or to the east and the west. And both of us agreed that it's very difficult. You have to creep out there in order to get across safely to make a left turn, particular towards San Bruno Avenue. Also, there's an issue that we noticed with speed coming down from Humboldt area or Ross Way towards San Benito. There's nothing that slows anything down, and that created a concern for us about the children that may be using those crosswalks, and there's not a lot of protection for them. Is there another slide? Yeah, this just shows, this is facing north on San Benito. That's facing south on San Benito, the Gold House on the corner. And then the picture on the bottom shows there's 2 ADA crosswalks there. And what's next? Is there another picture or slide? Justin?
Yeah, Linda, I think you're freezing up a little there.
That's looking to the west from Glen Parkway, and you can keep going. Oh, this is what. Okay, I'm gonna. This is one of our safe routes, is what we noticed on the Glen Parkway, the 88 crosswalk.
Right.
So our conclusions were that measures are needed to be taken to make the turn from San Benito up. Thank you. Next. The next slide. Justin, can you hear me?
Yeah, your audio is sort of
Everything
cutting out again.
Oh, that's odd. Okay, I turned off the camera. I'm having trouble with my internet, so just raise your hand if you can't hear me, because
we can hear you well now.
Not hearing it.
Now there's no more.
Okay. Okay. There are measures that are needed to be taken to make the turn from San Benito onto Glen Park safer and easier for both pedestrians and drivers. On Glen Park, our main recommendation is, and this is really goes against the parking study, but you know, there's lives at stake here. To the west and the east of San Benito on Glen Parkway, we recommend removing one parking place so that visibility in both directions is improved.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody looks frozen. Okay, you're not. I see eyes moving. Thank you.
Like that idea.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, on Glen Parkway, we'd like to install one of the following. Considering that this is a school zone, install stop signs on Glen Park at San Benito in both directions, or slow bumps in both directions. And as an aside, because people don't like to stop at stop signs, they may take the alternate route of Lake Street, which could create more traffic or faster traffic on Lake Street. And that would need to be monitored and addressed later. That's our report. Thank you.
I have a question for staff. Is there a protocol, like a way you study an intersection to determine whether it's appropriate to have a stop sign?
Yeah, there used to be adopted stop sign warrants, and the state kind of went away from that as a policy, but it's still a rule of thumb that we like to use as guidance, and it has to do with what happened. Has to do with how much traffic is on the main street versus how much traffic is on the side street, how many pedestrians use an intersection during a day. And the hang up is, if we put a stop sign there, we're going to have them at every block. And if you have too many stop signs, everybody starts to roll all of them. Like you just can't, I mean, you physically can, but it's just not effective to have stop signs block after block after block. Then why is this worse than Ross and Sierra Point and Lake and, you know, all the other streets on?
I think it's the visibility and the crosswalks that need protection. And they are part of the safe routes.
I mean,
Well, every intersection is a crosswalk. It's just not painted by the vehicle code.
I think this might merit maybe further just study from like maybe staff, because it's so close to the elementary school and the main entrance of the elementary school. I mean, I certainly don't want to add another stop sign, but I mean, I'd certainly like to hear what the staff study would say about whether a stop sign would be appropriate at this corner.
Well, the first thing that we looked at when we got this information was removing a parking space on, or one or two, pulling it back from the intersection on the downslope side. And the reasoning would be, if you're turning uphill, you need to see that car coming up. But if you're turning downhill, do I have this right, Justin?
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
That the cars coming downhill should be on the opposite side of the street to some degree. Glen Parkway is not that wide, so you have a little more room to pull out and see that car coming downhill than you do the one coming up. So taking away the parking where the white SUV is parked to start.
Well, yeah. So again, so because there's a fire hydrant there, if you can see at the intersection, there is an existing red zone here from the corner, so that already exists. And if it's desirable, we can push that even further back and take out the space where this SUV is to improve visibility on the downhill side. If that would, you know, if we feel that would.
And of course, it's, as I'm sure you guys are aware, a delicate balance of losing parking and making intersections safer.
Yeah.
But this block has homes on one side and it's kind of school parking on the other side. A lot of times it's not completely full over there. So we think it's a spot where we wouldn't hear the highest amount of outcry if we eliminated a little bit of parking there.
I agree. And I mean, something is better than nothing. I think
Linda, you're
something
muted.
has to be done.
I could hear Linda for a minute.
Sorry, Linda, can you repeat that?
I agree. And I think something has to be done. I wouldn't mind having a meeting with staff with Patrick and looking over some of the options that we've come up with. Maybe there's more options.
Yeah, and then just to comment on the other alternative you proposed, which is the speed humps. So again, because Glen Parkway is on a slope, it just doesn't make sense to place speed humps there because they hold water and that could potentially make it you know, even more dangerous. And then there's also, you know, just noting that if we put a speed hump here, everyone's going to want one, and they just, you know, we're trying to seek out less costly and more effective solutions first before we you know, consider something like a speed hump, which is, you know, it's more expensive to put in.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Fire isn't really big fans of speed humps either, to be able to be responsive. And it is in the municipal code that they're not allowed on any streets with a profile grade of more than 5%. So a steep street, because of the safety challenge. I mean, I see them in San Francisco, they do it, but we're not really fans of the liability.
There's other options like bot dots.
Yes.
There must be something that we can do to slow the traffic on that street and prepare people for the crosswalk that goes straight across that wide street. And
You know, it's a school crosswalk. There should be a stop sign. Anything less is negligent.
Well, that's kind of a subjective comment. So let's talk to the subcommittee, because we don't need to have I think that's a good idea on Linda's part to talk as a subcommittee.
I agree. How do you feel about that, Ernie?
That's fine. Anything's better than nothing.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of our report.
Thank you.
In Justin and Karen, in San Francisco, like on Clayton Street, as you head down towards Oak, it is like kind of on a downgrade, but I've noticed they have like speed bumps that aren't like speed bumps I see elsewhere. They're not as high, and there's also like it's not doesn't come across the entire street. It still serves its purpose in slowing traffic down, and it's not as it's probably, you know, maybe, yeah. I was just, you know, I was wondering if you know, is that still allowed, you know, with going down hills, you know, like a profiled version of a speed bump that's still effective?
I've seen those too. I see them on Roosevelt. So they've got an opening that's, I think, for emergency vehicles. And
like in the middle.
A car can drive through that too.
Yeah, well, yeah, sometimes. That's true.
I don't know how I muted. Sorry. Something we could look at. I think our policy wasn't written with those in mind. That could be something that we could look into too.
Because the box dots, if you know, if they were looking at that, especially in that residential neighborhood, I think Justin, didn't you mention that somebody that they can be kind of noisy, right? And
yeah, depending on there are some applications. There are some types of rumble strips that are quieter than others. I think bot dots are probably the noisiest that you can get. But yeah, again, that's another, you know, if the residents are able to put up with some noise, you know, rumble strips is we feel a pretty cost-effective traffic calming solution.
Those other type of speed humps, they just came to my mind because I was thinking, you know, if when we discuss this further for if there's a speed issue in the ridge, you know, and maybe using that as an option to slow some of the traffic down.
And Justin's talked about this before. I don't know if everybody was on the committee that where he lives in South San Francisco, a speed hump was put in near his house, and you know, the community wasn't necessarily consulted, and you talked about, you wrote an article about some of the ways that it doesn't work as intended. So maybe you could mention those again. Yeah, so the city did put a speed hump in front of my house without consulting us. And, you know, it does slow cars down, you know, as they're going over the speed hump in the immediate vicinity of the speed hump. But what some people tend to do is they tend to speed up after they go over the speed hump to make up for the time that they lost slowing down. And the other thing that's annoying about it is that, you know, delivery trucks, when they go over, they rattle and they make a lot of noise.
or pickup trucks with, things that are unfastened to the bed. They when they go over, they make a lot of noise. So, there are some drawbacks to, there are going to be drawbacks to, to any traffic calming solution that's implemented, but speed humps are not immune to that. They serve a purpose, but they also come with some flaws.
Good points. Thank you.
I mean, I agree with the staff. I really think speed humps or traffic calming measures like that should be a measure of absolute last resort, especially on a sloped street. And the code, our town code, already backs us up on this one.
Yeah.
All right. Great discussion. Last subcommittee item, unless there's anything else to discuss.
I'd just like
Please.
to add one more thing, please.
Certainly.
I don't recall whether or not on Glen Parkway if the speed limit's posted for school time.
There should be signs on Glen Parkway downhill from Lake, because that's where the 15-mile-an-hour zone starts, is at Lake Street. There should be a sign, if you know where the Glen Park pump station is, there should be a sign there that says 15 when children are present.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The last subcommittee work item is to investigate potential for slow streets or one-way streets. Linda, did you have an update for that?
No, I don't. I thought we covered that at the last meeting. We did a kind of a short survey on Facebook, and there was a lot of pushback, and I don't remember where we left it. But I thought we were just not going to do that after all.
You want to remove this item from the agenda?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mostly people did not want this. What's the feedback you gave last month?
Okay.
Makes sense. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the potential speeding issues on Mission Blue Drive between Monarch and Checker Spot. Justin, I think you said you had some data about that.
Yeah. So I did send over that data earlier this morning. So we picked up the radar counter end of last week and compiled the data. And what we did find is that the 85th percentile speed is about 40. And we believe that that's partly due to, driver behavior during the pandemic. People have expectations that, they still have expectations that there's not much traffic. And, at the height of the pandemic, when there really wasn't a lot of vehicular traffic, we all find it easy to drive at high speed on certain roads, especially on, like on the freeway when it's mostly empty. There is a tendency to exceed the posted speed limit, and I think that people are still holding on to that mentality even now, even though we're starting to come out of lockdown. So that's that we feel is accounts for part of that, and so we will. I know that the committee had asked for data at Checker Spot, so we will also be putting the device there and getting data at Checker Spot for about a week, and then once that's done, then police will be doing some increased patrols for a little while to as part of an education piece to get people aware of the speed limits on Mission Blue.
Well, thanks for the data. A couple comments. One was I don't know if Commander Garcia is still on the call. So it looked like if I was looking at the data correctly, looks like was it about like 10-15% was over that 85% threshold of 40 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah.
And is that So is that considered a significant amount of speeders?
No,
Or something that needs to be addressed.
I mean, so the 85th percentile speed is used to set speed limits where we do speed surveys. And the thinking is that, when you look at the speed that 85% of drivers are traveling at, that sort of takes into account the majority of, of regular drivers traveling at, at the speed that they feel is appropriate for the particular roadway, and the top 15%, those are sort of the outliers, the non-ordinary instances that people would, would speed on a street. So again, that 85th percentile is the standard that we use to set speeds.
And well, 40 is pretty fast considering what Bayshore is, 45, the speed limit there. But that particular segment, that street is, it's straight, part of it's downhill, and it's easy to speed. And it is, potentially a safety issue there because you have the baseball field there, the sand courts, the tennis courts, and Mission Blue Center. If there's people utilizing that area, although I don't imagine them like crossing the street. But having data at the other location on Checker Spot, I think it would be very helpful because since that's kind of at the top of the crest of a hill, a couple of those streets that like from Checker Spot that turn on the Mission Blue, whether it be Red Hawk or I forgot what the name of that other street is, but if you're making a left or right onto Mission Blue Drive, a lot of times, and if there's cars that are speeding up the hill, you really don't see them until the last second if you're turning left or right onto Mission Blue Drive. And so it would be helpful to to gather the data of the number of speeders on Mission Blue, around that location. I think that's, that's a safety issue for people turning on the Mission Blue as well as that crosswalk area.
Yeah, the intersection with Checker Spot is it's sort of a different, the conditions are different from down by Mission Blue Field where it's wide open, where the visibility is good in all directions. Yeah, so we'll get the data for Checker Spot. We're interested to see, what the trends are there at the crest curve. I think, when you look at Mission Blue as a whole, it is sort of, and you look at how open it is, it is sort of, it can be difficult to drive the 25-mile-an-hour posted limit. I mean, it is, I don't know if any of you have driven on Mission Blue recently. If you've actually driven it at 25, it does seem
very slow.
It does seem slow, just given the fact that, that it is somewhat wide and it's relatively straight with few intersections. So it's,
Hey, Jim. If you look at what we did with the traffic study, which was back in 2014, and we set the speed limit, it talked about pedestrians, not as much cross streets, pedestrians, and just the alignment being up and down and having curves. Now, maybe we're finding over by the center, Mission Blue Center, that trying to get people to go 25 is a little bit of a stretch because you can see it's a wide street and you can see pretty far. But the crest, absolutely, people need to be going slow there because it's not safe. So we want to see what the data shows, and then, apologies that we didn't have it by this meeting and the counter got put at the other location. But definitely we want to make sure that that's being managed the way it should. And there still is, we talked with Commander Garcia earlier about this we're in this transition. I wouldn't say lockdown, but people working from home now, and there's a lot more traffic on the roads, and like getting people settled back into a regular routine. So there's probably, like, in general, getting people to drive the speed limit and recognize it. And we don't want to make drastic changes really fast. We kind of want to get through this period. I mean, all indications are that things will be, that this county will move into the yellow tier and things will be a lot more back to normal in June and July. So taking data right now may not be reflective of what happened before and what happens, longer term. But we're going to take the data, and then police will do their focus, problem-oriented policing. Then maybe we'll take more data, and then we'll have, more information about it. But yeah, if people are going 40 over that crest, that's a problem.
Karen, also, I wanted to dovetail off of that now that more events are coming into the Mission Blue area where they're having events, one of the things that hill does do, or the Mission Blue area does do, is, in terms of, potential accidents and, near misses, we don't have them because as much as it's difficult to do 25, the way the geographic layout is provides great sight lines. So what we've noticed is when vehicles are coming down that crest, let's say they're coming towards Mission Blue from Guadalupe, and they're coming down the crest, you can see if there's, it's always you have a lot of cross traffic and a lot of people attending a softball game, and then that naturally just slows cars down as well. They're not going to see that and come blowing through that 40 miles an hour. So the drivers really do have that perspective of, okay, it's empty, and then they kind of just coast right through it. So we've noticed that when there's events there, and we can probably get that data after we reset it, after we grab the initial data now, and then when we resume activities out there, you will probably see the trend that when there's softball games and cars, that naturally chokes cars down in terms of their travel path. That actually slows them down. So that's what we've seen. So I think, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like Karen said, and everyone I think in this committee, if you're out there driving, you notice just even on 101, look at the speeds that people are driving now. 65 is no longer, a norm. And that mentality is really just, going everywhere, even in terms of residential, business districts, and freeways. We are really going to start re-educating the public and being out visible and slowing them down. So I'm hoping that as we come out of these tiers and we go into these new tiers, that our traffic calming, presence out there will really re-educate the public. So just wanted to add that.
For that.
Anything else?
I think you bring up a lot of good points, Commander Garcia. So I'm glad you just shared all that. We are in a unique time, and it does seem like there's really good sight lines, and traffic does respond appropriately. Yeah,
and I'm not trying to say that we make that area conducive to 40 miles an hour, because then you do 40 and then people are going the 80th percentile becomes 50. You don't want to do that, but at the same time, if we're trying to back this up with traffic data that in terms of accidents, we just don't have them, only because of those sight lines that are really provided because of the natural slope, the incoming slopes of the roadway.
And I was just trying to point out, I think those two sites are unique. The one down near the Mission Blue Center versus the one like on Checker Spot and Mission Blue, because the sight lines, like turning on Checker Spot, onto Mission Blue, like going, if you turn left, on the Mission Blue, if there's a car that's coming up quickly up on the hill, and you're starting to turn left, I know there's many times where I just barely kind of got through, because there was a car speeding, across, because there isn't a lot of visibility, there's a small window of, if a car's going kind of fast up the hill.
Yeah, that one is limited on sight lines, because like you said, if you're coming out of one of the streets and you're making a left towards Guadalupe on Mission Blue, you kind of have to creep out of there because you see that traffic as it almost comes over the hill and it's pretty much on there. So I'm not sure if, what a recommendation, I mean, I don't even know if it would be possible to, as you're coming down the roadway and it tells you oncoming traffic is coming, to give you the maximum notice that, hey, there's traffic coming up the hill. I don't even know if that's a possibility, but that would definitely give drivers, the heads up like, hey, even if you're not paying attention, even at 25, if you're not paying attention, someone's still going to come up on you really fast. So, and that one is challenging. I will say that, yes.
Okay, good discussion. Moving on to new business, we can discuss the updated bicycle pedestrian master plan.
You want to talk about this, Justin, or me?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. So our bike pedestrian master plan was it was last adopted in 2017. And since then we've been getting a lot of requests for improvements, and grant opportunities have come up. And with the Baylands sort of on the horizon, what we wanted to do was, look at how we can, if there are any opportunities to add an amendment to the existing plan, to add in potential projects or programs to address, to improve our bike facilities and infrastructure. So much like what the expansion of Safe Routes subcommittee is doing in terms of looking at potential pedestrian improvements, we wanted to bring this to the whole committee in terms of looking at improvements to the bike network and whether there's any room for improvement over the existing plan, to consider any additional facilities or programs, especially with respect to to the Baylands. This plan update is not going to cover the Baylands itself. The specific plan is still in development, and that none of that has been finalized yet. But we do want to sort of think about connections, bike connections between central Brisbane and the Ridge to the Baylands, and whether there's any opportunity to add on to the work that we've done for the plan in 2017. So let me just pull up the plan itself.
And while you do that, this is a lot like what we were talking about for pedestrian routes. And Justin and I talked about, should we have a subcommittee or a task force look at this? And Justin kind of led me to the conclusion that maybe this is, since nobody's really an active bicyclist on the committee, that we'll kind of take a stab at a draft and then talk about it as a full committee if you guys want to do that, unless there is a burning desire to have a subcommittee to look at this.
Yeah, just sort of thinking about this from a 30,000 foot view. When it comes to the pedestrian facilities, we know that there are certain gaps in the sidewalk network, and there's a lot of potential to expand safe routes and all of that. With the bike network, Bayshore Boulevard has buffered bike lanes, and Guadalupe has buffered bike lanes, and so a lot of our major corridors already have existing bike facilities, or any additional improvements have already been identified in the plan. So we feel that there's not quite as there may not be quite as much to do in terms of updating the plan in terms of bike facilities as compared to the pedestrian facilities that the other subcommittee is looking at. So let me find a way to rotate this. And I'm on a Mac, so I'm not as familiar with how things work. Alex, do you know how I can rotate this clockwise?
I think you'd have to you'd have to open it in some kind of PDF editor. I don't know if you could do it from the browser itself. So if you downloaded the file and opened it, you should be able to rotate it from there.
Okay, let me try downloading.
So, Justin, when you're talking about bicycle routes, is it, I mean, with the vision for, you know, bikers, commuter, or entertainment, or both?
You mean for commute trips or recreation trips?
Yeah.
Well, I think we would want to think about both, right? It's all bike trips we want to consider in terms of connectivity around town and to the future Baylands. And you know, with the Baylands, obviously we imagine that there would be more commute trips and recreation trips. So that's definitely, we want to consider both, I would think. There we go.
There currently aren't any bike lanes on Tunnel Road, right? To, you know, if people wanted to cycle to Caltrain Station or to potential, you know, Baylands Depot, would they be utilizing Tunnel Road, Tunnel Ave in the future?
Yeah, well, for the future Baylands, I would imagine that bike lanes would be planned for Tunnel Avenue. You know, but as of now, as it exists, it's, you know, Tunnel Avenue is the private portion. Well, the entirety of Tunnel Avenue is not wide enough to support Class 2 bike lanes. You know, even in the city-owned portion, you know, north of Golden State Lumber, you know, because there's on-street parking, because the lane widths have to be a certain width, we just don't have the room to install designated Class 2 bike lanes. So there are Sharrows, you know, Class 3 bike routes on Tunnel right now, but we just don't have the capacity, the width to have the Class 2 bike lanes.
Is this something that you were thinking of, you know, for the future, so that we could ask for federal funding, you know, for a project or part,
Yeah.
you know, as this is part of a project?
Yeah, I would think that as part of the specific plan, you know, that the city has to approve that, right? So I would think that we would want to make sure that Tunnel Avenue and other streets in the future Baylands would have those facilities. But with this particular plan update, we're not thinking about that just yet because we don't have any of that information. It's just, you know, how do we connect from our existing neighborhoods to that area? And you know, and another, you know, what are the other connections within what is built out now? You know, how can we make that better?
Justin, just to clarify, I guess I was thinking that we were asking the committee tonight, did they want to form a subcommittee or did they want to look at it as a whole? And it sounds like you're asking people their input, and you thought we were gonna go into that specifically tonight, but since it's almost 8, maybe we've planted the seed and we can send this map around and get people's feedback by the next meeting or something.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Is there any desire to form a subcommittee? Does anyone want to focus on this item, or do we kind of, or do we want to sort of all think about it together? You know, I can send the map out and we can all take a look at it on our own and come back with ideas as a full committee.
I vote for that.
For the full committee?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be fine to come back for that. And if there's a lot to discuss after next meeting, then maybe we could reconsider forming a subcommittee.
Yeah, good idea.
And that this also applies to central Brisbane downtown. There's not a lot of room for bike lanes, but there's still the opportunity to have sharrows and share the road signs and things that notify people that bikes are there. You know, you see that also in San Francisco, some neighborhoods, there's not room for a bike lane, but they're still like, hey, this is the bike route, so expect to see bikes around here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd be interested in, you know, people that have kids, do they think about having them ride their bikes to school? Do they feel like if it were safer, they would do that? You know, all of that kind of stuff.
And so this is, I guess, a curiosity. Is it okay for both to coexist? I mean, to have a bike lane or bike route and a safe route?
On the same street, like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, if the street has sidewalks, you know, that can support the walk routes for pedestrians, and if there's room for like a class 2, like a designated bike lane, then of course those can be integrated in the same.
Yeah, like like if a kid wants to ride his bike to school, and you make that safe route, friendly bike, you know, with the signs and everything, I think that will be good too, right? Or it will interfere with the pedestrians. I don't know.
Well, I thought what you were asking was, what if we're talking about kids going to school, they may ride their bikes on the sidewalk. So it's a question we should ponder, I think, because that's
Yeah, because
the
I mean,
desired state.
you know, the California vehicle code defines cyclists as vehicles. You know, they can use the roadway itself, but you know, now when we're talking about like a kid riding a bike, that's different. You know, we wouldn't really consider that a vehicle to use the same space as like a car. So yeah, it's something that we, you know, I don't believe that there are, you know, safe routes specifically for bikes, you know, in general. I know that there's such a thing as I mean, in addition to bike lanes, there's also the concept of a bike boulevard, which is where, you know, you really slowed traffic down to the point where bikes and cars are able to use the same space. But that's really only for very low volume streets and streets that see a lot of bike traffic. So those criteria kind of have to be met for something like that. But you know, it's something that we can think about.
Commander Garcia, is are motorized bicycles for now at least considered still bicycles as well? And in our area, are scooters supposed to be in bike lanes, or are they allowed on the sidewalk? And in the future, as I imagine that those motorized bicycles, those electric bikes, may be able to go even faster, you know, they still be considered, you know, to be traveling in the bike lanes or on the regular street lanes?
At this point, they're still on the bike lanes. As far as the scooters are concerned, I believe, I just came from San Diego from a management trip, and I think, Justin and Karen, you can correct me, but you have to have a muni code that keeps them off the sidewalks, but they should go in the bike lane. Not true.
I don't know. We don't have very many. You were talking about scooters or electric bikes or both?
Both.
Both.
And I'm just also wondering, like, if in the future, when electric bikes, you know, are able to generate, you know, people are going to be able to go even faster. They're almost like, you know, mopeds back in the day. Are they going to also be in the bike lanes or that we create, or they should be on the streets?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all has to sort itself out. Maybe there's state law, and maybe there would need to be local laws, but like having high volume living in San Francisco, I live in the Mission, you see different things in the bike lanes, and you see scooters sometimes pull into it because they can get around cars, and that's probably not allowed, but I've seen them do it cautiously. So you've got, I mean, we've thought about like the bike share program. Some other cities have got bike share programs, and the only thing that would work probably in Brisbane would be electric bikes. So maybe it's in our future to explore all of that.
I think right now the California Vehicle Code, I don't think it addresses, you know, scooters and stuff like that. I think it's sort of, at this point it's up to local jurisdictions to sort of adopt their own policies, which I know San Francisco has done. I think Oakland and San Jose have done that as well. And I can't remember if all of them have, you know, have policies in place that designate or that require scooters to use the bike lanes. I don't think scooters in San Francisco, scooters technically aren't allowed to ride on the sidewalks, are they?
They're not. They're not.
I mean, they do, but technically they're not supposed to. So I think it's a relatively new innovation that, you know, it's one of those instances where the legislation follows the you know, the activity or the action.
And actually in San Diego, they pulled that program a while back and they put it back in, but the scooters, their software is actually geofenced that if you end up on the sidewalk, it'll cut the power. So you can't go on the sidewalk. It cuts the power literally. So you have to get off the sidewalk, and it knows where you're at, and it'll cut the power on you. Yes.
I guess unless you're developing, you know, shared pathways, wider shared things like Sawyer Camp Trail or the Foster City, you know, not Foster City, but the Bay Trail, where everybody's allowed, but it's a lot wider and it's 2-direction, like a cycle. It's not a cycle track, a class 4. So that's a good thing, I think, to think about when it gets to the point of reviewing what they do on the Baylands, is there's not just human powered bikes and pedestrians, there's this whole other window of different speed, electric powered things that aren't cars. So
yeah,
it's a good point out in the future. You know, we have a chance to put the infrastructure in the Baylands, you know.
Sounds good. Any other topics to discuss on this one?
I'll send out the. You all have the bike ped master plan, like I know it's on the city website. I don't know if you all are able to, but just so that, you know, if you want me to send the file to you, I can do that, or I can show you where you can find it on the website as well.
Or do you just want to screen grab the map for this purpose of this?
That would just, yeah, I guess that works too. Then you don't have to flip through.
Maybe a link to the plan and then just the screen grab of the map.
What do you mean screen grab?
You know, just a screenshot, whatever you can.
Oh, okay.
Page or pull the page out, whatever.
Okay, gotcha.
So everybody doesn't have to pour through the 100-page long document.
Yeah. But for your reference, the bike ped master plan, if you go to departments and then public works, and you scroll to the bottom to the supporting documents, that's where you can find it. Just FYI.
Awesome. All right, next topic for discussion is staff updates. Do you have any updates from staff tonight?
So I know that the Crocker Trail master plan, that's being finalized, right? I think we're sort of doing internal staff review, just a final review of the plan, and I think it's is it going to council to be adopted?
Going to the Park and Rec Commission and then council to be adopted. Yeah.
Okay. So all those months of work, we're able to see all of that come to this final plan to be released soon. So, oh, Patrick's not here, but but thank you to everyone who commented on it and gave their feedback. And while we're talking about the Crocker Trail, so right now we're getting started with the required technical environmental studies for the resurfacing project that we have federal grant funds for. So in order to get environmental clearance, we need to do an environmental site assessment, which is researching and sampling the soils on site and testing for hazardous materials, because the trail was a former rail spur, and then also doing an archaeological survey due to the trail's location at the foot of San Bruno Mountain, where there have been accounts of historical human settlement in the valley. So that's getting underway. We were successful in getting Cal Recycle grant funds from the state to do a rubberized Cape Seal for Sierra Point Parkway, parallel to Highway 101. So that part between the lagoon and Highway 101. We got funds to do rubberized Cape Seal treatment, which is basically it's a surface treatment that uses pieces of recycled car tires in the asphalt mix to sort of to make it produces a more flexible wearing surface that hopefully will last a good 10-15 years and be less costly than a traditional asphalt repaving job. So we're looking forward to doing that. And we're also, that project will also be happening jointly with the city of South San Francisco. So when we applied for the grant, we applied we partnered with the city of South City to put that grant forward in order to meet the minimum size requirements, the project size requirements for the grant. So that work I think we're hoping to have that done this summer. So our work will be lumped in with South City's paving project. And that should hopefully be happening this summer sometime. Karen,
cool.
any updates?
No, I don't think I have any this month. I thought I read in the minutes, though, that we were going to circle back on spiky plants. People were going to go take a look at that.
And also, was there an update on the mast?
Right. The
remanufacturing or correction of that. And can you refresh my memory? Was there eventually, were we going to have an intersection, at San Bruno and Bayshore, or just the mast?
It's the mast arm itself and the pole on the northbound side of Bayshore for to mount the no U-turn signs, and the idea is that it would be in place for any future signalization of the intersection. And so last month when it was being installed, we discovered that the pole itself, the bolt holes where the arm attaches to the pole, those were manufactured incorrectly. The manufacturer is fabricating a new pole for us, and that should ship by the end of this month, by the end of May. So hopefully we'll, and we'll have our contractor on board, and we'll work to get that installed as soon as we can once that's delivered.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, going back to the spiky plants. Patrick was the one who brought that to our attention. I think he had gotten like an email or something from a resident.
Posting.
Posting. That was it.
Yeah.
So
wasn't he going to ask or communicate or try to attempt to contact?
Yeah, he was, and unfortunately, he's not here today. So
no, I was thinking some of the committee was going to go through and look again. We can carry that over to the next time.
Okay.
Excuse me, I did go and look at them.
Oh.
And took pictures. Did I not send them to you?
I don't think so. Do you want to share them? Share your screen, or do you want to just send them over to me?
They're on my phone.
Okay.
I will send them over to you. I spoke with one of the residents on that street also, who is really invested in those plants, but I thought we had this conversation. I guess not. I will send them to you.
Okay. How did they?
How do you
go
look?
ahead.
There's still some plants there that make me nervous for small children. However, we've been there as a group before, and we had various opinions about what's safe and what isn't. So maybe we need to just revisit that at some point, and I will send you the pictures that I have.
Okay. So sounds good. Thank you.
And while I've got you, can I just ask a favor? When they do the archaeological study on Crocker Trail, could you let me know when that's happening? Because I'm very curious about it, just personally.
Okay.
Great.
I think they won't. I think as part of their scope of work, they they won't be doing any digging or anything unless it's necessary. They'll mostly be doing like literature research, and they'll also be reaching out to the Native American groups. And then they'll also be doing like a an observational survey, but I don't think they'll be doing any they won't be digging up anything unless it's absolutely necessary, unless they find in the research that there's the potential for artifacts to be in the area. But yeah, we'll let you know.
That would be really exciting for me to
Yeah.
witness. So I'd love to know more about it.
We can keep the committee updated on the findings. That our approach is kind of going to be, this is a valley with a drainage waterway through it. So if we do find that there are some localized spots where there might be artifacts, we're going to try to avoid those as much as possible. So you don't want to dig those up. It's complicated. If it's possible to avoid them and not put the sign there or the anything that needs to put the light right there and be 50 feet away and avoid it, we would do that. For sure.
Makes sense.
And should we talk about our next meeting is, well, there's chair and committee member matter. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go on to that.
Does anybody have any items they want to bring up for possible future agendizing?
Not from my side.
I have potential one thing would be on San Bruno Ave, as you come up on Bayshore, that strip of San Bruno is quite thin in some of the lanes, and a lot of the cars will cross that yellow line, especially if they're not paying attention, and it's already narrow as it is, and then some people are walking in the streets or biking, that makes it even more narrow. I'm wondering if, would it be helpful, like if we had some dots at least on the yellow line, so it would notify, drivers that they've crossed the line before they hit somebody, hit some oncoming traffic, which is.
Are you talking about like those reflective yellow markers?
Yeah, yeah.
That sort of dot the yellow.
Yeah.
I thought we already have those.
On San Bruno?
On San Bruno?
This is on the backside of San Bruno, right?
Yeah, like if you turn from Bayshore onto San Bruno, going up, let
me see.
We don't even have a center line the whole way.
No, there's a center line on.
Well, there is a center line, but it's a suggestion, not really for some people.
Yeah, let me see here.
And because I was just looking at it again today, because that street is quite narrow, and you can't really expand it on the south side because there's these huge tree roots that come all the way to that portion of the street edge, and then this is not a lot of room on that street.
Do people want to go into the rest of the committee want to go into detail on this, or do they want staff?
No.
Justin wants to.
I wonder if I can agendize.
It's tough on these sloped streets to hold that slope, but that's a problem like everywhere in town, and it's expensive to get a retaining wall in everywhere.
Right.
That doesn't mean
but
that.
I'm just thinking like markers, so like when people if they're on their phone and they're not.
It looks
really
like
paying
glue
close
is
attention.
there. Sorry, I'm talking over you. It looks like the glue is there and they're missing.
Yeah, it looks like. I mean, it's been a while since we resurfaced it, so maybe all the markers have come out. Yeah, you see where the adhesive was. So, here's one. There's one.
One's all we need, right?
How old are these photos?
This is November 2020.
Oh, okay.
And this is another. I use this opportunity to say, is this an area where we would want to propose better pedestrian access and try to get grant funding if it were available, you know, is kind of substandard on this area, you know.
This segment all the way up to Thomas is not great for pedestrians, cyclists, cars.
You know, really expensive to widen it. You need a retaining wall on either and both sides, but those would be the ones to go after those bigger grants if it, you know, if we can meet criteria. So good, it's a good bring up. Well,
I mean, yeah, I mean, for pedestrians, it'd be great because if there are kids who live in the trailer parks or the Joy Avenue apartments, I mean, it can be a challenge walking to school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This sidewalk is not really wide as it is, and it gets even more. Yeah, it's not. I mean, you could. My kids walk their bikes up sometimes, you know, on the sidewalk, and it's barely enough room.
One kid wide.
Yes, one kid wide.
Barely.
Yeah, so it's a good one to look at.
Yeah.
Any other chair and committee member matters? So I thought I'd just plant this. We talked to Patrick a little bit about it. So our next meeting is June 7th, but in July, Communications Caroline is having the production equipment upgraded, I think, to high def, so that we can in the future do hybrid meetings where if some of the committee members wanted to be in the community meeting room on the dais, they can do that, but they would be one Zoom screen and then other people could be on Zoom. So we have to upgrade our equipment, and she's blocked out a window when the council isn't meeting, which is in the beginning of July. So we want to wait until next month and see what we find with the survey and what our, you know, task load is, and decide whether I see our options is to not have that meeting the first Monday in July, to meet without broadcasting via Zoom, or to try to find another date. So in June, we'll talk about that. So just wanted to plant that.
Sounds good.
That's all I have.
Cool. Then if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right.
All right. We're adjourned at 8:15.
All right,
And
so-
thanks, Alex, for taking the lead as acting chair today.
Yeah, your first time as vice chair for a whole meeting.
I know. Big day. Big day.
Yeah.
You got more chair time than Patrick so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Could the parking subcommittee stay after, just so we can?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Night.
James?
Yes.
Wait, we're
I need-
adjourned, and